about the uprising in Syria. Some of y'all may have heard about it, some of y'all may not have, but I'm here to let y'all know what's going on right there. All right, so a little background as to what happened, what's going on in Syria right now. The Arab Spring uprisings that rocked the Arab world began December 18th of 2010, and it was started by this guy right here. He was a Tunisian man, he had a 4-year college degree, and he actually self-immolated himself after being unable to find work. He was living as a fruit vendor, and by self-immolate, I mean he lit himself on fire. And the people of Tunisia rallied around him, or heard his cry, and they toppled their government. Tunisian, they're a dictator rather. And the people, and soon it spread all over the Arab world. Egypt was the second one to fall. If y'all remember this, in Tahrir Square, 18 days. Egyptian government was taken out. Libya, Colonel Gaddafi was killed after the people there uprised, and we intervened a little bit, and also the leader again was also removed from power as well. So naturally, the Syrian people wanted to. Those protests began March 15th of 2011, and some of their rights here were economic reforms, lifting emergency laws, expanding civil rights, and the removal of President Assad. However, the Syrian government cracked down almost immediately, and by crackdown, I mean very crackdown. For example, the military and police began cracking down on these by just opening fire on protesters. Protesters were just slaughtered right out on the streets. There's plenty of videos on YouTube. And you can see it was army, like the government called out everything, like tanks, armored personnel carriers, artillery, air force, attack helicopters, anything that they could get to put down the uprising. The death toll right there, that was the death toll as of Monday, but it's definitely gone up since then. You can see there's some wounded people right there. There are hundreds of wounded all throughout Syria, but the government of Syria is not allowing the people to get aid. In fact, I actually saw on CNN a few days ago that they're so low on supplies that at this point they just have to pray for them. Basically, there's not really much else they can do because the Syrian government is not allowing any more aid to get in whatsoever. So who is the man behind this crackdown? It's this guy right here, Bashar al-Assad. He came to power in 2000 after the death of his father, who previously ruled. His father was a dictator, and many people thought he was going to bring in a new age for Syria, but he ended up going down the path of his dad and became an aggressive dictator just like him. It's ironic that what I find ironic is that he's actually a doctor. He was trained in London, so he's actually a doctor, yet he's killing some people brutally, as you have seen, and he himself has also denied those crackdowns. Like I saw an interview, for example, on ABC World News. He straight up lied to Diane Sawyer, lied to his team. Like he could have said he was Santa Claus, and he would have been more truthful, to be honest. I mean, any person would have seen he was lying right through his teeth. And what has the world done about it? Well, they have received condemnation, and there have been sanctions passed against the Assad government, but options for a military strike like in Libya or the question or really that can't happen because of a high risk of collateral damage. Like I've seen the Syrian people calling for military action, yet they have to understand that if we go in there, whether via the air or land, we're going to incur a high risk of civilian casualties. Some Arab nations have begun arming the rebels, and there has been talk about us arming the rebels. However, there's been talk that Al-Qaeda may have infiltrated some of these rebel groups, and we do not know exactly, and so there's been some hesitation to want to arm the rebels. Peace talks have occurred, but those two haven't exactly produced any results yet. And as of today, the rebels are currently, or they were based in the city of Homs, but it's been under siege now for a few weeks now. The rebels have almost been completely driven out of the city, but the Assad government is really brutally starting to becoming more brutal as it's cracked down. There is a ceasefire for this month, but it's set for I think sometime this week, but it's still, the killings still continue, and many people don't think the Assad government is going to. The peace talks do continue. There are still peace talks going on, but at this point, there's not really a whole lot we can do, really, except we can only pray and really that the Syrian people can somehow, take down Assad and his government. And I don't know.
Thank you.